remaining disciplined when you are tempted, when you're around a certain environment, a specific set of individuals who may be labeled underdeveloped or confused. What can you do to remain disciplined, focused, when everything around you seems to be out of your control and a bit chaotic? Immediately what comes to my mind is the idea of isolation. And there comes the quote, isolation is the enemy of excellence. But there's an asterisk, which is, I think most people who are on a path of development, finding themselves, following their natural curiosities, being aligned with their passions, you're most likely going to get to a point, a phase, a season in your life where it is primarily isolation. Now, I'm not saying you're sitting in your basement doing nothing, not going to the gym. I'm speaking more so in terms of social isolation. It feels as if maybe you're lonely. But this is not a bad thing, because for you to become disciplined, especially when you're surrounded by the wrong people, the people who are not iron. You know, iron sharpens iron. When you're surrounded by, I just look over and my dog's peeing in my other dog. Just about straight up, this guy's peeing on my other dog's head. Not literally, but animals. Animals are classic. I couldn't not mention that. But it's just fascinating realizing that you go through phases in life, and that for you to become disciplined, especially when you're underdeveloped, essentially like in the hero's journey, when you're breaking out of your former shell. Personally, my shell had so much to do with lacking confidence, being overly controlling over the things that I don't have regulation ability over, and just a lot of force, wanting things to be my way and trying to make others see it my way. And then inevitably enough pain happens, and I had to take a step back and realize, easier said now, hindsight's 2020, but I had to realize that there was a lot of frustration in my life. And then not only that, but what was causing the frustration, what's driving it. And again, it took me years to figure this out and to understand it to how I do now. But you're not meant to be in a smooth, comfortable zone your whole life. And you're going to go through a phase where life is just full of aimless phases, building phases, peak phases, and decline phases. And none of these are better or worse than another. This is zoomed out. But back on the discipline. Like, what do you do to become disciplined? You isolate yourself. What's the power in isolation? Well, you have more intention because there's less distraction. So much of distraction you could label entertainment, and you can still distract yourself in isolation. But a massive amount of distraction comes from other individuals. And a lot of stupid shit comes from other individuals. Outside influence. So when you clean up, you get your focus clear, your priorities clear. You begin to craft a vision built upon your values. Hence, where discipline comes in. Because it's not as if you just get disciplined. You go into isolation, usually. Of course, you can be isolated. You can be disciplined in a phase which is not your isolation phase. But more often than not, discipline starts during your isolation phase. Because that isolation phase is exactly occurring in this time of your life for a reason. You're meant to be building certain attributes, characteristics, and learning about yourself. That's what the isolation phase is for. And if you don't take advantage of the phase through becoming disciplined, then you pretty much make it much harder than it has to be. So usually what happens is it feels worse. It's not actually getting worse, but it feels worse before it gets better. So I remember I had the pain of cutting myself from a certain group of friends, a specific environment which didn't align with what felt right. And I had to reflect upon that, hence the isolation phase. And had I not learned how to become disciplined during that phase, I already was a bit disciplined, doesn't matter though. There are just certain seasons that are meant for specific actions. And the value in discipline, specifically in the isolation phase, is you're taking the most out of that opportunity of being isolated and actually turning it into a gift. See, what you'll realize as you develop, if you stay on the path, is the things you used to hate or perceive as curses have turned into sincerely your gifts. Like some of the most powerful aspects about your being. And it's paradoxical, right? It's paradoxical. So how can I introduce paradox into the idea of discipline? See, discipline is not just saying I'm going to do this and doing it. That's a part of it. But that's not all discipline is. It's quite open-ended, and you have to figure out, because you can't do everything at once. You can be disciplined in many areas at once, but you also don't want to become too rigid, because the idea of discipline is priceless when it's paired with fundamental core habits and aspects of a lifestyle. But if you get too obsessed with discipline, you're going to become weak, because solely relying on having everything perfect due to your discipline, that's a crutch, right? Just how alcohol, cocaine, whatever it is, addictions, crutches. You don't need to be perfect, is my point. To be disciplined is not to be perfect. To be disciplined is to understand what your top value priorities are, your tier 1 task, and to create a lifestyle which prioritizes the foundation up. You try building an amazing house on a shit foundation, it crumbles. Same thing with you. So my takeaway here is, what's your foundation? And what is the degree, the quality of your discipline within your foundation? Hope this helps. I appreciate you sincerely. Share it with a friend. I'll have link in description for one-on-one coaching if you're interested in reducing stress, if you view yourself as a leader, a future champion. Reduce stress, create discipline, create confidence, create big energy. Energy is the foundation here. But if your pain point, stress, overthinking, lack of clarity, anything along those lines internally, link in description. You can shoot me a DM. I'll also have justinagliscus.com where you can directly schedule your first game plan session. We'll take it from there. Share it with a friend if you enjoy. I appreciate you listening, watching sincerely. Have a great day.